So you decided to buy a home and you found an awesome lender to work with. Do you want to get pre-qualified or pre-approved? What's the difference? That's what we're talking about today. So let's go. Hi, I'm Bryn Cook and I'm a real estate agent here in Eugene, Oregon. When I first started thinking through this video, I wanted to discuss the difference between pre-qualification letters and pre-approval letters from lenders. So I dug into my closed files and started checking them out. I quickly discovered that the majority of the letters in my files were actually pre-qualification letters entitled pre-approval letter. So today I wanted to bring in an expert and talk through the difference. Joining me via Zoom is Lindsay Douglass with Finance of America here in Eugene.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So here's the first burning question. Can you tell us what the difference is between a true pre-approval versus a pre-qualification letter?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So at Finance of America is the only thing I can speak for. I'm sure different mortgage companies have a different definition and, process for the difference between those two. But a pre-qualification basically is my client has applied with their income. I've looked at their credit report. Really, it comes down to the income piece. In a pre-qualification, I'm trusting the income that they have applied with. I've analyzed their credit. I've figured out which loan program works best for them, and I've run them through the automated system for approval. That's a pre-qualification. A pre-approval is one step further, and I'm collecting pay stubs, W-2s, maybe a verification of employment, tax returns if necessary, all depending on what they do for a living. So I've analyzed their income. I don't just trust what they've applied with, and that can be a huge difference, especially with a self-employed borrower. I've taken their financials, calculated their income, and what I think my underwriter might actually use for approval, which is a big deal too. Analyzed their credit and their debts, figured out which loan program works best, and I've run it through my AUS to get approval. So that's really the difference is, do we have financials or are we trusting our borrower on their income between a pre-qual and a pre-approval?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you actually run it by a human underwriter or is it just through the system?
So just through the system for a pre-qual and a pre-approval. We at Finance of America go one step further and we do what's called a TBD, so to be determined for the property. Underwriting approval. So once I've got their financials, my AUS system approval, all that stuff, I've communicated with the borrower. Typically, I've met with them in person and we've kind of reviewed what options they want to go with because a lot of people have multiple, right? So together we want to figure out which one makes more sense based on their down payment or where they want to live, type of housing, all that kind of stuff. So once we've solidified together between client and I what works best for them, then I submit them with that scenario and their financials, their credit report to an actual live underwriter. And we have in-house underwriting. And so she'll get the file and she basically will analyze their credit, make sure I didn't miss anything, analyze their income, make sure they agree with my income. If they disagree, this is the time to talk about it, right? Because it really could change how much my client can buy, how much, really it's the mortgage payment that we qualify them for, not a purchase price. Really, it's how much of your monthly income do you have room for in a mortgage payment. So with underwriting approval, that's the next step after pre-approval. An underwriter has actually seen it, and so they put their stamp of approval on this borrower. So really, any red flags at that point are property related, which is super key and just puts a lot of my clients at ease, and they just feel a little more peaceful out there buying because it can be a stressful process.
So generally speaking, how long does it take to get through the pre-approval process?
That's a good question. So pre-approvals can take anywhere from 24 hours to a few days. It really just depends on what the client does for a living. And why that matters so much is what they do for a living is how they're paid, right? So if we need to use extra income, we typically have to wait for a verification of employment. So if they receive overtime or bonus, we're waiting for that. So the length of time it takes to get the VOE back from the payroll department where they work is really the length of time. But once we have that back, then they're pre-approved and they're out shopping and going to find a home.
So let's just break it down. What are the dangers of sending clients out to shop for homes with just the pre-qualification versus the pre-approval?
The biggest difference is financials. We have to know that when they go out to make an offer on a home, that they are financially approved, meaning I've got their pay stubs and their W-2s. If we don't have that, it's really kind of dangerous actually to go make an offer. Because if I'm trusting my client with the income that they applied with and they go find a home at their absolute maximum tier where I've pre-qualified them, and then I have to cut their income for whatever reason, it does happen. Now they don't qualify for this home. So it's super, super important to make sure we have financials and they get an actual pre-approval with a pre-approval letter before going out and shopping for a home. Due diligence up front is super important, and just, communicating with your client and letting them know the importance of it, because you don't know what they don't know. So you really have to express and educate them on how important it is that I get their financials and I really am analyzing it accurately. So when I send them out there to find a home with you, they confidently know that they can do it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking through this with me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I hope you learned something and found it useful. I'd love to have you join me in my next one. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
So, Lindsay, in your time, I am a dork. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Are you good?
Yeah.
You look great. It's just FYI. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.